Hello and welcome to another episode of Wedflics. I'm your host, Julia Braime. I'm the editor of Unveiled, the luxury wedding magazine, and the founder and editor of Brides Up North, the top UK wedding blog for northern couples. Today on the show, I've got a very special lady with me. It's the lovely Lo of Somers Creative, and we're talking all things pretty paper. Now, we filmed this a few weeks ago, and as we ease out of lockdown, her words and inspirations are even more vital than ever as we start to move forwards towards bringing weddings back. Please enjoy the episode, and I hope that you're inspired. So hi Lo.
Hi.
Welcome to Wedflics. So today we're doing a deep dive into the wedding stationery world, and this one's for couples. So it's for couples who are probably at the start of their process and they're looking, or further on actually, and they want to have some on the day stuff and they're looking to choose their wedding stationery. So I think it's probably best that I stop rambling and you introduce yourself and your business.
So I'm Lo, and I own Somers Creative. I set up Somers Creative 3 years ago, after I'd moved back up from Oxford after about a decade in print production and graphic design. And it was actually a bit of an accident that I stumbled into wedding stationery. A friend from uni asked me if I would do her a favour and create some wedding stationery because she was really struggling to find something that fitted what she was doing with her day. And it turns out that's actually a bigger need than I realised at that point in time. So I created her lovely wedding stationery, which was greenery and watercolour illustrations, and really fed into a hobby of mine at the time because I love painting florals and botanicals. And then that turned into another booking from somebody who attended her wedding and saw the stationery and loved it. And it rolled into this really amazing business that I didn't expect to happen and loved. So I stepped away from all my corporate marketing and graphic design and stepped into the wedding industry, and that's where I've been for a few years now. Yeah.
Wow, that's a nice story. I was going to ask you about your background. So you have a training in graphic design then?
Yeah, I've worked with big corporate organisations and third sector charities, and actually was a freelance graphic designer for a little while before I set up the wedding stationery business.
Right, that's cool. So you marry some different elements then, don't you? So you have your graphic side to obviously make things work, I guess, and then your artistic side, because a lot of what you do is it's painting and it's illustration, isn't it?
Yeah, it's been a hobby for a really long time. I attended a workshop with a friend of mine, with a really wonderful botanical artist, and it was just a few hours, but it properly sparked a passion, and that was something I did a lot of, but in my own time. And everyone tries to do a hobby between work, and it doesn't always happen consistently, but this one really stuck with me, and it was nice to be able to bring that into my working practice.
Yeah, I think you can see in your designs. I've had the pleasure of working with you on a couple of styled shoots and seeing some images of your designs as well. So I've touched and felt your designs as well as seen pictures, which I think is important actually.
Yeah.
And I think your passion for that side of things really is evident in your work. I mean, it really comes through in the sort of like the detail and the quality. It's beautiful. So your business just sort of rolled on. You're quite lucky then, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's a weird one. Not everyone can say I sort of accidentally fell into the thing that I want to do for the rest of my days, but I did, and it's been a really lovely process as well. It's such a nice industry to work in because everyone is so excited and really driven to create something that they absolutely love. There's not a lot of industries that can claim that kind of passion from their clients, essentially.
Yeah, and I guess on the whole, you get to see your couples when they've just got excited, really, before they've got really jaded by the whole, finding going through 100 shades of green bridesmaid dresses and things like that. So you get to get them at the start when they've just got engaged.
Yeah, all that enthusiasm is still really fresh. And I think because I have quite a long relationship with my clients, so they'll have just recently gotten engaged and they're not really sure what they want or what they need. So they're coming to me for information more than they're coming to me for anything else, to pick my brains on what they might need to think about for the wedding stationery. And I'm getting queries through Instagram and the webpage and in person at shows, and everyone's really bubbly and excited. But I'm still working with those people 18 months, 2 years later, when they actually get married, creating their on-the-day stationery. So I get to see their journey through planning their wedding and all the stressful bits and helping them out with that situation, and then the actual fruition, which is so lovely.
Yeah, you must get to know them pretty well, actually.
Yeah, I think it's quite a personal service. I mean, we essentially a deep dive into people's wedding days. I know all the nitty-gritties of the plans. I know their style. I know the colours they're choosing, the fabric of the bridesmaids' dresses. I've spoken to their florists and their venues, and actually it's a really involved role without actually being present on the day.
I can imagine. So why don't you talk us through that process then? So what's the process from a couple discovering your work, hopefully in Unveiled magazine or on our website, wherever and whenever they discover your amazing designs? What's the process then, like from maybe the consultation stage?
So from consultation on, assuming that people have already tracked me down on social media or met me in person, a consultation for me is the first consultation anyway, is to sit down and actually, without an onus being on buying a product of mine, actually figure out what that couple are after, what kind of style they have in mind, what their aesthetic is starting to look like, because quite often it's quite early in the process. And then I try to, at that point, offer as much advice as I can, because actually a lot of decisions haven't been made at that point. You don't know whether you're sending a save the date or an invite, and we iron out the practicalities first, and then move on to the fun stuff, which is figuring out all that creative. What colours are you thinking about? Is there a textural element? Are you thinking fresh flowers or dried? Are you thinking about something quite simple and elegant, or something a little bit more boho and delicate? And that whole process can take a little while. Conversations tend to be a couple of hours over a really good cup of coffee and a really nice chat. Yeah, it tends to be a lot less formal than people anticipate. You often get to the end of conversations like that and people are like, oh, it's like having you over for a cup of tea. Yeah, which is ideal when you're talking about creative stuff. You don't want it to feel quite structured. Yeah. And then from that point, once a client's decided they'd like to book their stationery with me, it really depends on whether they're going with one of our ready designed collections. So we have a range of designs that are ready to go, but very rarely does a piece of stationery leave us without being personalised. Or if they're going for a bespoke design, which is something that we would create entirely from scratch, based on that couple's idea of what they would like to do with their day. Quite often for me, that's botanical illustration. So it takes a little bit longer to talk through. So we'll probably have 2 or 3 consultations just to make sure we're on the right track, and that will involve concept boards. The first consultation is always practical. The second one for bespoke is usually a concept board. So I will put together all of their inspiration and then all of my thoughts on the subject and samples and bits of stationery we've already done in the past that are good examples of a style that they might be looking at.
I can imagine, just to interject here, I can imagine that, I mean, that concept board bit, that's the magic, isn't it? I love stuff like this, as you know. Maybe it's just a stylist in me. Maybe not everyone's like this. I don't know. But for me, that would be just like super special, super exciting. That is kind of going over and above what I would say most of the stationers do, to be honest. But I mean, from that board, it's not just their stationery. They could get a lot of ideas for their actual wedding planning. You're basically planning this wedding for them.
I hesitate to say that. I could upset a lot of people. I think I love the concept boards, mostly largely because they make my job easy. I can lay out in a visual way what they've told me, which actually is harder sometimes than you realise, to describe an idea and have somebody else be able to interpret that into something visual. So I like to make sure that I've gotten it right with the concept boards.
Yeah, I can appreciate that. So when looking at it from my job, when I have like, you'll have experienced this, when I have an idea for a style shoot, say for the magazine, which I'm kind of the art director on most of these, I'll have this concept in my head that I'll have drawn down from like interiors or fashion or whatever, it'll rarely be something I've seen in the bridal world already, because I think what's the point in doing something that's already been done? So we're always trying to like push the boundaries and stuff and things. And the first thing people always ask me is, oh, have you got a Pinterest board for it? And I never do, because I'm always like, well, no, because if it had been done, then we wouldn't be doing it. But I end up having then to pull from like the things I've just mentioned, fashion, and sometimes it'll just be one picture. And I just kind of, the creatives I hope will be able to run with that. But I can imagine that for a couple who aren't used to, you know, the design process, then that's really helpful for them to see it in real life.
It can be a lot to think about, especially when you're thinking about in the context of this big day that you're trying to plan. It can feel like a lot to think about. So the concept board's really, and then quite often I love giving people the concept board, especially when they love it and it's what they wanted, because it then gives them something to take to their florist and to take with them when they go looking at bridesmaid dresses and they're talking to stylists, and it's like a map for the day that keeps that aesthetic on track for them, and it's lovely because it means that we've had that rudder in the design of their wedding day.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's a really special thing to have, and it's not something that, you know, I don't think that should be overlooked, like the value of that piece of work. I'd be framing mine. I really would. It's like the bride in me 10 years ago would have framed that.
Quite often our concept was digital, and there's been a couple of couples in the past that said, can I have it printed? So we print and mount them, because it's a nice thing to have. It goes up on wherever they're battle planning for their day, it goes up on the wall.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, it's a really nice kind of like spare room piece, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? Yeah. You should charge for those. So then once they have agreed a concept for the design, what happens then?
So from that point, I go away and I create their first proofs. So because we've got that really established concept now, it's easier for me to create a complete first proof rather than creating a range of designs that may or may not hit the mark. So quite often that first proof is an almost complete version of what they're going to get for their wedding stationery. It might be that we tweak content, maybe we change fonts here and there, but actually it's usually close to finished product. And then we bounce those back and forth until clients are happy with what they've got, whether that be save the dates, their actual invitation suite, or their on the day materials, because it all follows a very similar process. Yeah. But that first proof requires me going away and painting. So depending on how complicated the illustration is or the design of their stationery, it can take anything from 2 to 6 weeks to produce that.
Wow, yeah, it's a really in-depth process, isn't it, with the hand painting. And what projects then are available to them?
That's the best part of doing bespoke stationery and having a background in print production. So I don't necessarily say I have a set range of items that are available to clients. If there's something that you've seen or would like that isn't currently on our webpage or doesn't seem to have popped up on our Instagram, it's probably because I haven't taken a picture of it or no one's asked me before. So we do everything. It really, as long as it's stationery related. I can probably
signage related, right?
Signage related, yeah. We do quite a lot of bespoke signage as well, specifically acrylic at the moment. It's been really popular. But yeah, no, we do pretty much everything, up to and including sort of interesting installation pieces that aren't necessarily something you would associate with your stationery.
Yeah, I think that's the beauty of using a business like yours rather than, you know, a print website, because it is like a creative process, isn't it? And there's so many cool things that you're working on. Maybe you've worked on in a styled shoot, or, you know, or you've got in your head that you want to try out, that you can sort of tell your couples about, or that you've seen on Pinterest or whatever. I love kind of like the hanging paper installations at the moment, almost like a big roll of parchment type thing. And like you said, the acrylics as well, obviously. Yeah, I think it's really interesting that, you know, it doesn't just go, it's not just the invitation you receive from the post. And even in that invitation, there's so many different elements and tweaks and differences. I know you're a fan of a tassel and like an overlay.
I love a bit of velvet ribbon as well.
Ooh, so yeah.
The walls of my office are concept boards, really. I have stationery stuck all over the place that are perhaps maybe not finished collections, but I like having...
So, is this for today? that little display? Or is
No,
that there all the time?
You're actually at my desk at the moment, and this is my current wall. So these are all pieces of stationery that are either brand new, that haven't been released on our webpage yet as part of this is a new house collection, for example, or bespoke pieces of stationery that we've done for clients that I've left up because actually their idea was really good, and we won't replicate that because it's their stationery. But that concept I like to keep in mind for future, because people have great ideas, and it's nice to be able to pull touches of that into stationery collections we might produce later down the line.
Yeah. So going back to the projects just for a sec, because I get too excited about the creative stuff. Going back to the projects, so I know you said like you don't have to have like a set thing, but what's like the minimum, or I guess not the minimum, but what's kind of like the usual that a couple would choose for their day?
So
what do they need, essentially?
I think so it's difficult to outline without knowing about people's weddings, but the usual run of things is if you're planning a destination wedding or a wedding that's a long way out ahead of time. I mean, at the moment it's particularly appropriate. Save the dates are the first thing that we would look at for a couple. If they don't need save the dates, or they've already done their own save the dates, then we would look at invitations. And the invitation pack itself is different for every couple, I'll be really honest. So everyone has an invite, obviously, but quite often there'll be an information card with that. There might be an RSVP. We do printed envelopes to go with those. It might be that we include information booklets with invitations, particularly if we're talking long weekends, with accommodation information and transport. So that changes completely based on the kind of wedding we're catering to. But very simply, like the bare minimum, I would say probably an invite and an information card.
How exciting is it going to be for people to get those booklets
Yeah.
in the future? Oh,
I
you
love
were saying about like
booklets.
a long weekend. What's that?
Oh, it's so good.
I know, it's going to be amazing. Imagine getting one home in the post. I'll be like, oh.
Just recently done one for
we'll
Thicket
be dancing.
Priory. We've just recently done one for Thicket Priory for an amazing wedding that was all weekend, and they'd got entertainment planned, and it just sounded incredible. I was excited and I wasn't invited.
Yeah, I'm excited. I've got no weddings on, like, personal ones on my calendar whatsoever. I'm like really excited about this theoretical wedding that someone else is having. Like, I'm definitely in the right job. So you've got your invitation, and then what else can they add in? I'm guessing like menus or the service.
Yeah, so we treat them almost like separate bookings. So your save the date and invitations are the first part of a booking for wedding stationery, and the second part is the on the day materials. So and that again is a massive spectrum. So the basics are usually menus, place cards, table plans, table numbers, all the bits and pieces of detail that you don't necessarily think about until you're getting right up to talking to your caterer and finalising numbers. On top of all of that, we do lots of, like I said before, installation signage, the drop scroll paper table plans that you can suspend from the ceiling.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah, so we do those.
I just describe these things badly.
No, I think I'm just repeating. Yeah, so we do everything. Oh, and orders of service for, actually I say for church ceremonies, but there's been a few civil ceremonies in the past where we've done an order of service because there's been elements of their service that have been really important to the couple, and they've wanted to have those recorded in some way.
Yeah, I've definitely seen order of service at civil ceremonies.
Yeah.
Quite
and
often.
I think it gets overlooked sometimes, but actually if you're having a really heartfelt civil service and there's readings in there that you want to be recorded for posterity for whatever reason, really,
or someone you want to mention or say thank you to,
yeah.
or just even to like sort of give a shout out to the bridesmaids. Or
absolutely, I love when the back page of an order of service is the wedding party, because it's just a snapshot of time. It's who was there on the day. These are the people really important to us.
Do you know what, as well, I totally would say to a couple wherever they're getting married to do that, because as a guest, when you're sitting down at a wedding and taking your seats and waiting for the bride, it's something to look at. Like it keeps them occupied because they're sitting next to the same person, or they might be there on their own. It's something to just like break
Do
the
that.
ice with, look at. Exactly. I think it's a really nice kind of just a welcome, and it's something to talk. It's like a talking point, isn't it, with the person next to you? I've definitely used that before as a talking point. So
absolutely.
Oh, sorry, go on.
No, I was saying, I think that when you look back, because people tend to keep this sort of thing, and it sounds really silly, but I maybe it's because I'm a stationer, but
no,
I
do too,
because there's so much emotional investment in it. And then it becomes like a recording of the day in the future. That's the sort of thing I want people to take home with them after my wedding, if there was something to take home.
Yeah, and not just a hangover.
Well, they can have one of those too, that by all means.
Oh god. Lockdown hangovers, the worst.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree with that one.
I've managed to avoid most of mine because I've been so busy working, but yeah, it's not great. So, and I guess like afterwards as well, there's like thank you cards, then you've got to get further, you'll be with them for life, won't you?
Well, it's funny, I've just done a set of christening invitations for a couple whose wedding stationery I created, so I'm kind of following them through life now.
We'll not go beyond that, but so once you kind of so how do you deliver, like how do you produce and deliver?
Okay, so all of our stationery is printed off-site with a professional printer. Having the background I have, I'm a stickler for things being perfect. So we send them off-site to a printer that I really trust, who are based in the UK, who I know use process-free plates, so there's no chemicals involved that I don't particularly want getting into the environment. We're trying to be quite conscious about that. And then delivery comes to me first. So I do all of the assembly on stationery. I know that's not something that everybody does, particularly with things like envelope liners and tying ribbons around invites. I bring all of that in-house and deliver stationery ready to post.
That's nice.
It's a lot of time to give back to a couple to do it here. And
also it's just, getting that things like tying a ribbon. Wow, that's hard if you're not good at it.
Yeah, there's an acquired skill in that. The same with envelope liners, if I'm honest. It sounds like something so simple, but it absorbs time like no other, making sure they're perfectly aligned. And I love being perfect. So so it feeds into, I love doing it. Other people might not enjoy it as much.
Yeah, you weirdo. That's so weird. Can't think of anything worse than tying like 120 little bows.
So I'm obviously in the right job.
Yeah, it's not my bag. Sure. So once you've tied the bows,
put together all of the invitation packs. So quite often there'll be lots of versions of stationery, whether it's just day or evening, or actually different stages of invite through the day and weekend. So I'll put together all the packs, make sure that they are literally ready to go in an envelope and be sent. Pack those up and send them by courier back to my clients, so they should arrive all wrapped lovely in our branded packaging, and I want people opening their stationery to have a really nice experience. I want it to be like that rush of excitement I got from them when they were first talking about their stationery. I want them to feel it again when they open the box and it's all there waiting for them to use.
I bet they will. I mean, there's nothing. that is a lovely package to receive in the post. So exciting. And I know that you'll have packaged it beautifully as well. It just kind of goes with your territory, doesn't it? So if couples are in lockdown at the moment, obviously this video will be online after that, so a lot of what we say will be just attributable to any couple anytime. But for anyone specifically watching this in lockdown, they could actually do a lot of this process with you, like via mediums like the one we're recording on today. We're recording on Zoom. So they can have these consultations almost from the comfort of their own home with you, I guess. Is that what you're doing at the minute with couples?
Yeah, so all of our consultations at the moment are done by video call, whichever suits people best. I know not everyone uses Zoom, but Skype or WhatsApp aren't a problem either. And then I'm obviously, as I said, I'm doing digital concept boards at the moment, so I can email those over to people. Proofs are all done digitally, and then all of the couriers that I use are still up and running and fully functioning, as are the printers. So actually I'm still meeting with clients, and I'm printing and delivering stationery to people who've got weddings later in the year and early next year who are sending their invites out now. So it's still all happening for us here.
Yeah, I think as well, because obviously there's going to be a bit of a swell in demand as we go into 2021, as more people are putting their weddings into the same year. I think it's good for couples who have like a long enough date on it to be sort of sorting everything out. I mean, that you could sort everything out and just not press print.
Yeah, absolutely.
You could have everything ready to go apart from that date.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's something that couples could be doing. And how can they kind of do some research when they're in lockdown? What would you recommend as kind of good research tools for them?
I think the first thing everyone says is Pinterest, isn't it? But I think especially with bespoke stationery, Pinterest is great for seeing what people have already done, but isn't necessarily the way to go if you're going to do something just for you. And my mantra has always been your day, your way. Like, I would rather be creating something completely new than repeating something that's already up on Pinterest, as beautiful as that may be. So yeah, come to me with a picture of a flower you've seen, or a photo you've taken of a print on a shirt in a shop because you loved it, or a colour that isn't necessarily something you would associate with a wedding.
Yeah, I totally second that. I think that Pinterest is a bit of a lazy answer, isn't it? Yeah, and I'm so glad that you didn't take the lazy answer. I knew you wouldn't. Everyone can't see me, but I was doing the thumbs up at low, because I think that to get something truly original, you need to take your inspo from other places and really feel it. This is like your wedding. It's meant to be the heart and soul of what you're about. So what do you love? And it doesn't have to be someone else's wedding.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's a really much better place to start. And obviously, if you need some visual, of the type of flower, because not everyone knows like what that flower's called or whatever, X, Y, Z. But I think don't start at Pinterest. Start in your imagination, and then look to Pinterest to illustrate what's in your imagination. Would be my top tips. That's how I style my shoots, giving all my secrets away. But it's it's how you stay original and fresh, and that your wedding doesn't end up looking like everyone else's. Lo wouldn't let that happen anyway in stationery. I know she wouldn't, but it's just worth bearing in mind across like every facet of your wedding planning, I think.
Absolutely. Pinterest is always going to be a really useful resource for practical reasons, if for no other reason, to see context. I think when you're not necessarily used to thinking visually, having a place card on a plate in a picture and seeing that it looks beautiful is really helpful. But when it comes to actually planning your aesthetic for your day, that definitely shouldn't be guided by somebody else's ideas. That's definitely all you.
Yeah, you need to sort of absorb what you're seeing in magazines and in real weddings online and on Pinterest. You must need to absorb it all together and sort of like filter it down, like let it sit. And lockdown's a great time to like let ideas sit. Like, you don't have to be doing anything. It's bought you some more time, if anything.
Absolutely. If there's one good thing to have come out of lockdown, it's that it's afforded people the luxury of time that would never have happened in the past.
Yeah,
it sounds really, I've had a lot of conversations with a lot of quite disappointed couples over the last few months. I think everyone in the industry has, but the one good thing I can give to them is that they've got more time than they had previously to have exactly what they wanted.
And time passes.
Exactly.
Time passes. I mean, quick's that gone? So quick. It's like gone.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
And actually, how often do we get within 3 months of a wedding day and people are like, oh my god, I just wish I had another couple of weeks?
Yeah. I think I hyperventilated 3 days before my own wedding. Like, it was over like bridesmaid gifts. I didn't do what I do now as a busy solicitor, and I think I just dashed into town to get some bridesmaid gifts. Like, it's ridiculous. But yeah, I think that it's kind of worth keeping things in perspective.
Absolutely. And I think every supplier is there to help people at the moment.
Yeah.
We're all there with the good ideas and we can tell you what to do with all the extra time. So
help us a little bit. Your job's for you. No, I mean, everyone has got their own issues in this time, and I mean that's like illness aside and whatever. But in the sense of kind of planning your wedding and taking the time for that, I mean, I think you just have to look on the bright side in every cloud. Yeah. Much as you possibly can, definitely.
Yeah, this is still a positive thing. It's still lovely that you're planning your wedding and it's going to be beautiful. It's just going to be a little bit longer than you anticipated.
Yeah, it's going to be better, I think, to be quite honest. I mean, you're going to not have anybody there that's like not wanting to be there on the day. Nobody's just there because they have to be there. Like, everyone's going to be keen. So it's lovely. So let's talk a little bit about your designs then. So how would you describe your style of stationery?
Oh, that's an interesting one. I think it's difficult to describe it simply because I do so much bespoke stationery for people that it covers a massive range. There's definitely a feel now to the stationery I'm producing. I think a couple of years in, it's settling into what is recognisably Summer's creative style, especially with the botanical illustration. We have a new design that's not quite launched yet, but I'm really excited about it. That's focused on greenery, which is my favourite, which is great, and it really taps into that that modern elegance that's coming through in a lot of event planning, particularly out of the States, and actually has some strong black elements, which is new for me. I love it. I love that it shifts the focus from clean open white planes to botanical illustration with some really bold strikes of colour in there, even if it is black.
Someone else mentioned that in one of these one of our event stylists mentioned that, like, you know, that inky black coming in.
I think as a way to punctuate your event styling or your wedding day, and it's a lovely way to really punch some definition and detail in there. I think that we've had a few years of this really delicate boho trend which is beautiful and quite textured and dense in that texture, and now we're moving into this approach to clean lines and open space that's broken up by quite strong shapes and strong colours, whether that be a neon or a black. And I really love that. I think it works well against my botanical illustrative style.
Yeah, it's refreshing, isn't it? That's the thing where trends move on. You like a trend because it's refreshing.
Yeah.
But going back to like what your style is, I think people find it really, really hard to define their own style. And I think your style is very obvious. So I'm going to say what I think your style is. So I think your style is like really kind of an arty approach, but like a refined artisan approach. So it's all in the detail. It's like the hand painting, it's the fit, like the quality of finish, it's the florals, the botanics, but done with edge. That's what I describe your style as. I think you could imagine your invitations kind of like being in a greenhouse, you know, growing.
That's a lovely way to describe my stationery. Thank you.
Yeah, that's what I think your brand is. I think it's really kind of like lots of heart and soul, but in a grown-up way.
I think when people are coming to me to create designs for them, or even using designs that we've created, a lot of our house collection designs are from styled shoots where we've had really interesting briefs, and then I've converted that into a piece of stationery that I love, and then it becomes one of our house collections. I think the thing I want people to buy from me is something unique, and I'd like it to feel like it was created rather than being mass produced. I want it to feel like a piece of artwork, which is essentially what it is. I think
I think that's what your designs feel like. They feel like little artworks, and that's what I mean about, like, because I know your designs, I know you. That's why I'm like, oh, I'd print off and frame the design board, you know, the concept board, and I actually do have some of your stationery framed in our house for one of our style shoots.
Really? I didn't know that.
from our you sent it to me after the shoot because I forgot to take it home, from the Unveiled, the ones to watch, where we did sort of like a staged fashion show, which was an amazing day, wasn't it? We had such a good time. And the images were amazing from Amy Louise. But so I think that artwork's quality, depth, like they're pretty timeless as well, your designs.
I think
I'm not just saying all this. This is all true. This is why Lo's here, because she's one of my favourite stationers. They're timeless. They're not kind of like faddy and trendy and like overly girly. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of like classic, but not classic. Sort of like classy, trendy, grown up. Yeah,
this is going to sound really big-headed, but when I'm creating a new piece of stationery, if I can't imagine it appearing in a high-end magazine like Vogue or Tatler, then why am I making it? It needs
or Unveiled.
Or Unveiled. I'm sorry.
Come on.
I think it needs to feel really high-end. Like, really, really well made and well executed. And very rarely does, well, in fact, never does a piece of stationery leave here as a proof without me thinking, I would happily post that on the internet now with my name next to it. So it needs to feel really painterly. It's probably the best way to describe it.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, I'm thinking like kind of like artists, like old masters. Like I think of like stately homes. Even though your work is modern as well, I think like it can hang in a gallery type vibe. But this makes you sound really expensive, but you're not.
No.
So how does that work?
I think alongside all of that professional pride, I've spent a long time working in print production, and I know how frustrating it is to really love something and then find it to be inaccessible. So I put a lot of work into ensuring the highest quality print at the lowest possible price, which means that we can make our suites that bit more cost effective and accessible to our couples. It's why we do the house collections, because they're not brand new designs, although they can absolutely be customized.
Yeah, do you want to tell us a bit about your house collections?
Yeah, of course. So we've got, I think we're up to 14 now collections, all very different designs. So there should be something for everybody in there, although I'm constantly adding to it because I can't seem to stop myself. And things change and trends move on, and what people are after changes. I create a whole suite for every design we do. So each house collection covers everything from save the dates all the way through all the things you might possibly want in your invite to on the day menus, place cards, table plans. So there's everything you might need there ready to go. And those, because they're not brand new designs, don't come with a design fee. So you're literally just paying for the print. And the customization of those is a service we offer free of charge on the house collections. Because it means that more people can use my designs, and I love that. That's what they're there for.
Yeah, that's great. And so if they're, whether they're sort of taken from the house collections or a bespoke design, are you kind of like pricing it for them beforehand, giving them a good idea? Because we're the same. So with my products, I always like to be kind of inclusive as well as we call it affordable and aspirational. So it's like trying to like hit the sweet point between those two things and making it that kind of as many people can get involved as possible. Like that's the thing. It's the same with you, isn't it? Kind of like keeping your client base happy, but delivering on.
I'd hate to think I was advertising something that people couldn't have. That would, and actually it kind of negates the point of creating lovely artwork stationery for people in the first place if no one can afford to buy it. So yeah, we aim for that sweet spot too, because I wouldn't want to compromise on quality. And I think sometimes perhaps I don't want to rubbish other stationers because that's not what
but that's not what you're about. It's never that, but this is about your business. Yeah,
I quite often get couples coming to me with stationery samples they bought online from mass-produced stationery producers, and their quality isn't what they thought it would be, and the colours aren't what they thought they would be, and actually that money could have been invested into stationery that was maybe slightly more expensive but not a huge amount, and 1,000 times better quality and exactly what they wanted.
Yeah, and then they're also obviously supporting a small business, supporting a local business as well, which we're already always really passionate about with my brands. I think as well, like the people who are coming to you, showing you those products that maybe didn't hit the mark for them, they always really care about their stationery. So it's not going to be for everyone. Like, everyone isn't going to care as much. For people who don't care as much, there are options. But, this is your wedding day. It's your one day. And, if you're going to care ever, now is the time to care. And it's not just about a piece of paper. It's about the whole mood of your day. I'm leading you here because I was going to ask you, why is wedding stationery so important?
So from my point of view, wedding stationery is probably the first creative thing you do associated with your wedding day. So you've found your venue, you've picked your date, usually before you come to me, because you've got a date and a place in mind, but everything else is still up in the air. And actually your wedding stationery forms the backbone of the aesthetic for your day. And we talked about the concept boards earlier, but that same concept applies to our house collections as well. If you've got an invite that really guides you in terms of colour and approach to style, then you've established with your guests, because you sent it to them, it's the first thing they see, and yourself, how your day is going to roll out in terms of design. And actually giving yourself that creative guidance is so valuable early on. And I think there's something so exciting. Invites are that I love invites. I'm biased. I love invites mostly because you get like a 6 months, a year out preview of someone's wedding day. And it
often sits on someone's mantelpiece or wherever they like the shelf, or who hasn't, like, you know, not everyone has mantelpiece. we do, but we have an old house. But you know, it sits there for like ages.
Yeah,
it's on display for ages.
Yeah,
it's kind of your brand as a couple, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And it sounds, and you're completely on the money with brands. So we quite often the monogram. So every stationery suite that I send out, and this is just my personal, I love doing them, so I do the one for everybody. Every suite has a monogram, whether that be really simple or something quite elaborate, and that monogram I give to my couples as a graphic that they can use wherever they want to, because you are branding your day when you create wedding stationery. And that it sounds so corporate to say brand your day, but it's
I don't
true.
think it does. I don't think it does. I think the word brand, I've been looking after this with some work I've been doing for my new network. The word brand, I think, is a scary word. But when you put the word brand aside and say feel, like how do you want your guests to feel? What and what sort of touch points do they associate with it? So in terms of like colours, the mood, the scent, all that stuff, all that touchy-feely stuff, you know, it's the other side of brand, and it all comes together to be like a full experience, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So your brand starts with that first invitation, but it continues right through to, you know, like the choice of song you choose as you walk down the aisle, and
and I think
like that stuff.
In my mind, stationery is similar to dressing yourself to go out for a night out. The way you present yourself.
Is it?
Yeah, I know it sounds really silly, but the way you present yourself to the world, you similarly present yourself through your stationery to your guests.
Yeah, I definitely would present myself better through your stationery than my normal dressing myself. Yeah, I feel like you would dress me better. I'm gonna get you to make me a stationery set and just send it out and from me. Just like, yeah, I'm not coming, but I've sent a beautiful. Sorry, I can't come card.
This is totally why I do business cards.
Oh yeah, do you do business cards? I didn't know you did business cards.
Yeah,
oh, there you go.
Yeah.
For any wedding industry people listening, right? Cool though. She's going to sort you out, but make sure that her work does fit with what you actually like, because you've got to have compatibility there. That's also the thing for your couples.
Yeah, absolutely.
You've got to put some personality in, because that's a big problem in branding. If you make your brand look one way and then you turn up or host something and it's completely different. Yeah. So it's important to have continuity throughout, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Brands should represent the entity that they're the symbol of. So it should also, your stationery should reflect you and your other half, rather than reflecting what you think a wedding should look like.
Exactly. And that's why it's important to go back to that sort of whole Pinterest thing and to start with your own imagination rather than looking at someone else's day.
Yeah.
Right. Let's talk about trends. So first of all, I guess, like, okay, trends aside, I know you're a bit of a stationery geek, which is a good thing. So what, like, kind of materials and like colours and stuff like that, added extras do you like working with for a start before we get into trendy stuff?
So materials, because I do so much detailed illustration, I'm always going to be a fan of a really high quality, crisp white card, because it reproduces the artwork that I create so well. And I aim for that to be reasonably eco-friendly as much as I can, because the production process in creating white card actually isn't necessarily great for the environment. But outside of that, we've just started working with black and coloured stationery printed with white ink. I love it. Looks so cool, especially when you're looking at line work, interesting fonts, and then balancing that with other bits of maybe vellum or coloured card to go alongside it. There's something really new about it. Again, we were talking about.
There is. We, for our last issue of Unveiled that just came out recently, we did some printing on colour, white on colour and white on black. And when you're laying out on the screen, you're like, oh, not sure. It's harsh. But when you're on quality paper, it just looks.
Oh, it just looks lovely.
Great.
I've got samples laid out in front of me, which is why I'm looking at a slight angle down the table.
So we've just one she prepared earlier.
And it's got a tassel on it as well. So of course I made it.
Obviously.
Blush pink has been really popular, and I think will continue to be popular. I think it's how we use it that's going to change. So rather than this being a ditzy floral print, it's big, bold, abstract leaves and interesting modern fonts with tassels, obviously.
Beautiful.
But it's super simple print. Like you say, when you see it on screen, you're like, oh, it's not enough. But it is. It doesn't need to be overwhelming. And I think things like, we'll see a lot of this as well, which is white ink.
Each one. That is gorgeous.
Yeah, and I love these. I think it gives us an opportunity to look at simple line work very differently, without really adding too much detail to stationery. And as much as I love foliage, and sometimes that's not what people want, and you don't necessarily want to be led by that either. So something as simple as a floral illustration done entirely in white is lovely. So
you see this being a trend coming through then, on the colour, the line designs on the colours and the blush. And I'd agree with blush paint. That also echoes something we talked about in an earlier episode.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Particularly the blush, I think. And I say not just blush. There's a real sway towards these like rich honeyed colours as well. Terracottas and sort of not quite golden yellows, really deep warm colours that work really well with florals that look great in photos. And it's that holistic way of thinking about how your day is going to look in the photos at the end. If your stationery has elements of those warm tones to it, and then the floral pulls that in as well, and your photographer has quite a warm approach to how they take images, everything's going to pull together into this lovely whole rather than having elements jarring against each other.
Yeah, like that golden feel.
Yeah. And I think that is going to come through a lot, and the simple stationery printed onto coloured stock really leans into that.
Yeah. Very nice. What else is coming?
What else have I got on here? So much botanical illustration, and I'm biased, but you see it.
Funny that. But she's right. She's absolutely right. Botanics are big
everywhere at the moment. I think H&M have just launched a new collection of homeware that focus specifically on botanical illustration, and we're seeing it on the catwalks. It's in every home styling magazine at the moment. And it's quite rightly so, because it's a beautiful art form. So I predict seeing a lot more of that.
Let's have a look then, Lo.
quite realistic illustration though. So I think we've had a few years of loose watercolour illustration of florals and botanics. So now people are going for a little bit more of the realistic approach.
Is that the one that's on your wall?
It is, yeah.
Yeah, that is gorgeous.
So we like it.
Look at that.
And actually it's made up of simple components. So all there is really on here is different types of eucalyptus and some ruscus, a cosmos and a peony. And it's not over the top. It's absolutely what you're going to see in the arrangements your florists are going to produce for you in the summer. It's beautiful and delicate without establishing a style that you can't work around. I think the worry is when people are adding florals to their wedding stationery that they're then stuck with those. But that's not the case at all, especially not if we're using things subtly. I
like how you've got the graphics as well within that. So you've got that square, really crisp, clean square. So it's not, like you say, it's not too undone.
I think it'd be easy to look a little bit old-fashioned if I didn't put a huge amount of focus into bringing everything into a more modern realm. So there's a lot of negative space work in the stationery that I produce, because I think it helps break up quite detailed illustrations. And then things like, this one's a little bit out there. So there's a lot of neons floating around at the moment. So you can't really see on the camera like this, but this is a neon light ring. And the stationery we produced for the shoot had something that's called spot UV, so it was actually glossy, to really make it look like there was neon lights sat behind these illustrations. So again,
so spot UV to put it in layman's terms, it's what we would put on the on the title of our magazine on the front cover.
Yeah, so it's the shiny
like
bit of print. It's that glossy feel you get on book covers, and it's like quite often feels a bit raised. It's really easy to reproduce in stationery, and it gives this really luxe feel and really lifts elements of design. So particularly things like, so working with black again, particularly things like adding neon lights. There's a lot of neon lights in wedding days at the moment. I think they look amazing. They add real focus to design on the day. There's no reason we shouldn't be bringing that into stationery. And I think,
and it ties it together. So neon's a big trend, and I see it prevailing. It's a really cool trend. It's a cool focus on your day, but even cooler if you've kind of made that a thing.
Yeah.
So like if you can bring it through, it's this balance. So if that's like your thing and that's the thing on your wedding day, bring it into the stationery. If botanics is the thing, but then you can incorporate neons on the day, that's also really cool. I'm totally on the fence here.
I think again, it's that holistic way of thinking about stationery. You don't have to have everything all the time in the same place, as long as everything works together overall. And I think quite often, so the neon ring around the stationery was part of a photo shoot, and I wanted to incorporate it to prove that it could be done, that it doesn't have to be jarring. We didn't have to have floral stationery that didn't look quite right next to the
there's nothing worse.
No, everything should merge together seamlessly, and they don't.
I say there's nothing worse. There's obviously worse things in life.
Well, I mean, it depends what your priorities are.
Let's get real. But like, I see a lot of styled shoots come into me, obviously, and it's where they've gone kind of, it doesn't work together. It's not been thought through. Everyone's just kind of turned up with their stuff on the day, whatever, and just shot it all. That's not cool. Like, you've got to kind of have cohesiveness and a plan.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think it's even more vital outside of styled shoots in people's wedding days that same approach is applied to
100%.
how you. Yeah, absolutely.
Who cares really on a style shoot? It's all about the wedding day. Style shoots are for making the mistakes, aren't they?
Precisely. Really? Style shoots are for all the lovely pictures that give you inspiration, and but actually your day is the most important thing, far and away, and it's far more important that everything's cohesive for that.
And this is what Lo can help you with. So during this consultation, she's always consulting with me right now. Like, she can talk you down and say, oh, well, actually, I think, that maybe wouldn't work, or, how have you thought of this? Or, once she's heard all about your day, that's kind of where the magic happens, isn't it? So do you have anything else for us?
Yeah, actually. So I've been working a lot with, I've just mentioned delicate ditzy boho stuff. So I love creating suites that I know people can really easily customize to fit with their day. So I try to create stationery that's easy to customize the color of. So again, with this pink, it's everywhere.
So, I like this one.
Yeah, so we've just created a brand new suite called Delicate Boho, that again features really simple line work, all in one color at the moment. This actually, as part of our house collection, comes in, I think it's 6 different colors already as standard, but we do a color consult for it. So I'll match it to a bridesmaid dress or a particular flower or just a Pantone swatch that you've seen and really love, because it's so difficult when you've got a color in mind to find that exact shade in something that's ready made. So I try to create at least half of our stationery, I think, in our house collections have elements where you can completely flip the colour out for it to be exactly what you're after. So we're doing a lot of that, and a lot of sort of dressing with, there's going to be a lot of dried florals going around. I think that trend's going to persevere for a little while. I think mostly because it's quite practical. I'm quite, this is really bad, isn't it? Quite glad there's less pampas and more now of this bleached ruscus going around and bunny tails.
Yeah, I think with anything, it's kind of, we saw it, we've seen it, and now it's time to the next thing, isn't it? I mean,
Absolutely.
still love it in the done right. What I don't like to see is the same thing done time and time and time and time again, and the same combination of things, like, you know, the macrames with the pampas and the, you know. But it's not, that's just coming from like a creative point of view, because actually there's probably not been that many weddings that are actually that styled in that sort of sense, you know, like, but there'll be elements.
Yeah, I think we saw a lot of inspirational images floating around, particularly in places like Pinterest, that were swamped with pampas grass, and particularly in places like Australia, and coming out of LA, there was a lot of that taupey tone, dry floral, and it's beautiful. The way it's been shot is beautiful, the way it's been used is beautiful, and the way it actually has been brought into a more practical remit and used in the UK is lovely. And I think it had a lot more of a floral drive when it was used in the UK. I think it was pampas against florals, which introduced colour that wasn't necessarily present in those inspirational images. So we made it our own, the UK, really.
Yeah. The thing is, you have to give people what they want, because they do want it. These trends are a trend for a reason, because people like it, they want it, it's cool, it's you know, it allows structure. It's we actually shot pampas. We shot pampas for our last cover, actually, thinking about it, but we did it in a cool way. So we tried to make it relevant and fresh and new, actually honey tones, funnily enough. But for my next cover, I won't shoot it. Yeah, so that's why it's kind of it's all about kind of moving with the times, and I really like that dried ruscus.
Me too. I think from my point of view, because I quite often work with people's florists to create their illustrations, and often the illustrations on people's stationery, with the bespoke stationery, is inspired by a bouquet, or perhaps the runners they're having on the centre of their tables. I'm seeing less of that pampas texture now, and more of a drive towards structure and shape, and I think you get that from things like bleached ruscus and bunny tail.
It's almost more like snappy florals.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? That's how I describe it. Like, again, I'm not very good at describing things.
I know what you mean, like that pops of structure and colour.
Like you wouldn't necessarily want to pick it up. No, that's the vibe, isn't it? You'd break it. So your favourite design of all time?
Well, do you know, actually, this is going to sound, the first piece of stationery I created that was a house collection for Summer's Creative was our eucalyptus design.
She just happened to, this is not a pre-planned question. She didn't know this question was coming.
I've literally, it's a swamp of stationery in front of me. It's I'm very happy. It's all laid out. It's really lovely.
Well, keep showing us more. Keep showing us more. We love it.
So this is our eucalyptus design, which I'm sure anyone who follows me on Instagram will have seen this. I love it, mostly because it was the first one we did, and it has remained the favourite. So it's our most requested stationery design, and we've created it in lots of different forms. So we've added ruscus in for people who wanted a little bit more delicate detail in there, but it's in its core, it's still that piece of eucalyptus that I painted 3 years ago that kick-started the business, really, because it actually featured in that first piece of stationery and was lifted to create the house collection. So I love it.
I kind of want that on my wall. I love that eucalyptus. Can you print it for me?
I'll pop you on the post.
You could do some printables, just saying. If you don't already. It's beautiful, isn't it? It's just simple, it's botanical, it's just timeless. Love it. I love it too. That's why we get on, though. We like the same things.
I think it established the style going forward to me, and for that reason it's always going to be an inspirational piece.
It's beautiful.
That one, and so my other favourite, I have two. One is a house collection and one's bespoke, because I've clearly thought it through. I created a piece of stationery for some very, very good friends of mine, one of whom's mum was an illustrator in her own right and had recently passed away. And he brought me her illustrations and said she created Brambley Hedge. So he brought me her illustrations and said, I'd really like for our wedding stationery to speak to my mum, and I'd like a piece of her to be part of the wedding day. So we created this.
Oh, look at that. And it does say Brambley Hedge, doesn't it?
For anyone who doesn't know,
I feel like I get so emotional at this sort of stuff. I just love that.
I think it's that personal feeling. I think I painted a piece of his family history into his wedding stationery, and it makes me well up a little bit thinking that's the reason I like doing bespoke stationery.
Yeah, totally. Like, I don't know these people. I do know Brambley Hedge. It's one of my favourite childhood books, so maybe that's why I'm getting it. But I've got goosebumps here, like, you know. And then for a piece of stationery for a couple I don't know at all to have given me goosebumps is, you know, it's pretty incredible, isn't it? It's like, but yeah, it's all about that feel. It's all about the feel.
It is absolutely all about the feel, definitely.
So, do you want to show us anything else before we go? What do you want to pick us out some more trends or anything like that? Just give us a.
I think probably one last one. And it's a few pieces of stationery, but they're all along the same theme. So again, if anyone's seen my Instagram or seen me at fairs,
well, let's drop your Instagram in. So what's your Instagram?
So my Instagram handle is at Summers, SOMERS_creative, and I love posting up on there, although I've been a bit rubbish through lockdown, but there's usually images on there that you won't find on our webpage. So bits of me working, painting on stationery, bits of new stationery that we haven't published yet. It's worth keeping an eye on there just because we're always doing something a bit different. Yeah. So anyone who's on there will have seen our watercolour designs. Actually, it's part of our branding as well. So our branding is a big watercolour wash. In fact, it's in this colour.
There you go.
And these have been really popular. So I paint a new wash for every couple that use them. Mostly so that it's specifically the colour they've requested, but also it makes that piece of stationery completely individual. And the same goes for our colourful washes.
I have seen that on your Instagram. That's
you've seen this. Yeah. I like that one.
Has it been in a shoot as well recently? Has that been in a styled shoot recently?
Yes, it has. Yeah. So we did a styled shoot that was a riot of colour, actually. It was really good fun, and it was nice to create something bold. I think too often people want to stick to a simple colour palette, and that's not something you necessarily have to do, or necessarily have to reflect in your stationery either. You can really go for it if you want to.
Do you know, it's really relevant to now, that kind of rainbow. It's got really 90s vibes for me, that bit of stationery. But I love that. It's like, that's going to be a good party, isn't it? You know, and also the rainbow of, like, obviously current times with our sort of focus on rainbows and things. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, so I think it's nice playing with colour a little bit more. I think people are being more bold about how they approach their stationery now.
Definitely, and their interiors, interestingly. So I am one for grey. Like, obviously, you can see behind. I like grey. I like crisp, clean, airy rooms. But oh my goodness, have I got an urge to paint some colour in my house at the moment? It's a good job that I'm not going to be in Cube, because I
think the colour thing is a response to a couple of years of this really clean aesthetic. I think the colours now are everywhere because of that, where it's like a
pink, flip-flop. A bright blue, yellowy, like a yolky yellow. I'm dying to get the paintbrush out, but I'm not going to, because I have homeschooling to do alongside my career. So what do you love most about your job? No.
Oh, it's definitely working with my clients. It's definitely that relationship that I build with people. I think I get to spend actually probably longer than most people would working with another person, another client. A couple of years of creating new things and talking through ideas, and that's totally my bag. I love it. So it's probably that, and obviously getting to paint for a living, which is a blessing, really. I think I never anticipated working in graphic design that I'd end up turning what is essentially an artistic hobby into my career.
Yeah, that's the best bit, I think. And what's been your proudest moment?
Seeing us going to print, actually, in Unveiled. Yeah, so that first double page spread really made me feel like we built something.
That was a beauty as well. A real beauty. It's actually inspired a lot of layouts for us.
Oh, lovely.
It was the layout that I just sort of thought, oh, well, that looks different. And that was inspired by actually your eucalyptus design.
Oh, great.
So it made us kind of think outside the box in our own design. So
yeah, I loved being able to, actually, this sounds really silly, I love being able to show it to my nana.
Yeah. Well, I show every issue of Unveiled to my mum and dad first. So there you go. It's the same. Yeah. It's the same. That's nice to hear. Can't wait to get back on Unveiled. So how can people see more of you? We've already said your Instagram, so I'll pop it here again, the Instagram address. And what about your web address? What's your website?
So our web address is summers-creative.com. We try to keep that one up to date. We've just refreshed it, actually. It looks lovely at the moment. You can get in touch with me through there. Our contact button comes straight to me. You don't go into a dumpy email box, so you'll get in touch with me, the person, rather than a robot. And actually on there are all of our house collections that you can browse through. So the individual house collections are all up as thumbnails, and then if you click on them, it takes you into a huge gallery, which is all of the images that we've taken from styled shoots with that particular piece of stationery, so you can see it used in lots of different ways, which is actually sometimes more helpful than just seeing it laid out. So I thoroughly recommend having a good browse through the webpage. And you can also find us on Pinterest.
Good. Obviously.
Yeah, I mean, clearly. So if you see a piece of stationery that you really love, pin it onto your inspiration board, because when it comes to talking to me about things that we've done that you love, it's easier to be like this particular one than to try and describe it to me through voice call or over the internet. Yeah.
Or like I do, just general ramblings. She does work, though she's saying this, she works very well with the general rambling.
Oh, thanks.
So, brides, grooms, feel free. Anyway, I think we've done a lot of rambling today, haven't we? But it's been amazing.
Yeah, it's been really lovely.
Talking all things arty and all things stationery and just future goals, really, isn't it? So, so couples, you can be doing this at the minute with Lo, so make sure to take advantage of her time at the minute and really get some lovely plans in place.
Absolutely recommend getting in touch with me sooner rather than later if you're planning a wedding stationery at the moment, simply because so many weddings are now rolling into next year. Things are getting a lot busier, a lot faster than we anticipated. So if you're on the fence or you're not sure or you just want some information, by all means pick my brains. I'm happy to respond to emails and even phone calls if you just want some advice on what to do next.
Even phone calls.
Even phone calls.
That is going above and beyond. I would do a phone call. Well, anyway, thank you so much, Lo. Thanks for coming here, and thank you so much, Lo.
Thank you for having me.